Happy Friday, Slasher U viewers. What you talking about? I'm your host, Steve Feck, and we're going to try to get some conversation started here on the Slasher U YouTube channel, as well as the Slasher Sports podcast feeds. This little misadventure streams twice a week, Wednesdays and Fridays. And we're going to try to look at stories and reasons why we're college basketball fans. And, we're going to maybe take some honest looks like we're going to do tonight about how we can maybe be better fans of college sports as a whole, not just football and basketball. We can maybe take a little look in the mirror and say, you know what? Instead of watching the reruns of whatever Gilligan's Island or whatever it is we were watching some night, we could go to various sources and watch some pretty exciting collegiate sports. And we also, with shows like this, we want to help you talk college sports, not only with us through the comment section, but also with your friends and family, your fellow alumni, your fellow classmates. Maybe win a few free beverages with a couple of things you might pick up here at what you're talking about and all the programs on Slasher U Sports. So let's be sure to give a like and a subscribe if you're there, on our YouTube channel. There's a section for you to enter comments. We want this to be a conversation that goes on day after day, week after week. Even if you're not catching, let's say, this particular episode until 2 or 3 weeks later, my co-host Christian Rao and I go back and look at all of the comments. We want to have a conversation with you. When we say what you talking about, okay, it's a clever play on words about university and you and Slasher U. That's true. But what we want to do is somehow have a conversation with people that we may never meet, but we have a common interest, and that is college sports, and a common goal, and that is making sure that our favorite teams, our favorite conferences, our favorite sports get talked about and get followed. So make sure that that you do give us a like and a subscribe. We are thrilled at the input and the comments and the number of subscribers for such a short-lived program. We really started it with college football. We have a lot of content throughout the week, but we want to talk about the entire landscape of college sports. So now, remember Andy Warhol's famous theory that everybody enjoys 15 minutes of fame? It's a pretty cool idea. And just because these clips here on what you're talking about are about 15, 20 minutes, I'm not looking for fame. But I think all of us, myself included, need to take 15 minutes of shame right now. And before you get all bummed out or outraged, let me explain. Right now, and throughout this past weekend, you literally could have been watching and witnessing a wide variety of either conference championships or conference tournaments or meets on sports channels that you already have. And you didn't. And it is a shame because, there are just tremendously gifted and dedicated athletes that compete for the universities that either we attended or we root for or that are in our hometown that are just criminally overlooked. And even 10 years ago, it could be understood because, okay, you didn't have streaming was just kind of getting started and, some of the individual conference networks weren't quite up to speed yet. there seemed to be a primary focus on the revenue sports of football and basketball. But now, today, in today's world, I mean, look at you now. You're tuned into our YouTube channel, or you're listening to us on the Slasher Sports podcast feed through Spotify and anywhere you find your finer podcasts. And you found me, and we're talking about college sports. So why aren't you watching more sports other than just football? Or we're getting ready to start next week, men's and women's college basketball in earnest. Just this past weekend, there were tournaments on a variety of outlets: men's and women's soccer, men's and women's volleyball, women's field hockey, men's and women's swimming and diving, men's and women's cross country. They were all on, whether it be your regional sports networks, which of course is focusing on local university and colleges at various divisions, but primarily Division I programs. But ESPN Plus. You could say, well, I don't subscribe to ESPN Plus. If you have Hulu, you've got ESPN Plus. A lot of people are subscribed to Hulu. You probably are. You probably even have ESPN Plus because you want to catch as many football or basketball games as you can. It's not going to cost you an extra nickel or dime or quarter. You're not going to have to give up, the fancy Starbucks pumpkin spice brew any morning this week. You're not paying an extra dime to be able to follow these games. And talk about stories. If you watch any one of these telecasts, and okay, are they as slick and are all the camera angles as sharp or as enticing as the major network ones? No, not necessarily. Some of them can be pretty tough to deal with, but you can still follow the action on the field. And the announcers, in order to fill time, have interviewed coaches and players, and they've got all of these wonderful stories to talk about who you're seeing running that final 1,000 yards to perhaps win a cross-country beat. Or who might be, making a big shot in a women's field hockey game. Or someone that's in goal for a college soccer team that's keeping their team's tournament and playoff hopes alive. That's all available for you. Now, this past Saturday, right after we did SlasherU's Saturday morning special, our live college football preview that my partner and co-host Christian Rao and I stream to you every Saturday morning live. This week, we're going to go back to 10 o'clock rather than 8 o'clock. I think it's better content for you because we'll be more awake, and it's maybe a more convenient time, 10 o'clock Eastern time. You're just waking up on the West Coast at 7 o'clock. I think it's going to be a nice fit for you, the viewers. But between there and the first kickoff of the games, I'm a big FCS guy. So most of those games kick off at noon. I was able to watch the West Coast Conference, men's and women's cross-country championships, and the Ivy League men's and women's cross-country championships. And you might say, well, cross-country, it's boring. It is not boring. They're running challenging courses, hills, mud, and they're running distance. It's not just a quick sprint. It's not a wide receiver going down the sidelines trying to beat a defensive back. Okay. These are trained, skilled athletes competing against what Mother Nature is putting out there in front of them on these courses. And congrats to Brigham Young University. They won their tournaments, both men's and women's, and in the Ivy, Princeton men's, Harvard women's. Congratulations to you. But that was time that I filled. And I'll be honest, was I sitting there mesmerized watching every moment? No, I didn't. But I was there at the beginning. I was able to look up, still look at some notes, interact on social media, look up. I was able to follow what was going on and learn fascinating information about runners' backgrounds, injuries they're trying to overcome. So it was time well spent. And it didn't cost me any money because I already had ESPN Plus. It's what I was going to use later in that day to follow all of the FCS games that meant a lot to me. And it's great that football means a lot to you. College basketball starts in earnest next week. I'm like a kid at Christmas. It doesn't mean that I can't join and follow other sports. And the other thing to think about is just about everybody, even in a casual way, follows the Olympics. So a lot of the participants in this cross country, the distance runners, or in soccer, or in volleyball, we've either already watched them compete for a medal for either the US or whatever country they might be coming from. And certainly NCAA athletics are becoming increasingly more represented by international athletes, not just athletes that grow up here in North America. So there's there's that crossover and attachment. You like watching the Olympics? See who's going to be in the next Olympics by following these sports. And it's the same thing for winter sports when you have gymnastics and wrestling, uh, and when you get into the spring, when you have track and field. There's also indoor track and field during the winter. So take advantage of your social media and your streaming platforms and your cable package and your satellite channels. Take advantage of it. You're already paying for it. And I'm not saying ignore your family, spend 24 hours a day watching college sports. That's not what I'm stressing here. What I'm stressing is don't be so narrow minded. Don't have the blinders on. Look at the entire college sports landscape. Now, this is just an example. This is what I'm talking about right now is just what is on tonight, either um, on as we record this for Friday release or on later, depending on where you live and where you're viewing this from. Lehigh Army, Miami of Ohio, Buffalo, Maine, New Hampshire, Albany, Binghamton, Gardner Webb Campbell, SMU, South Florida. All of those teams, men's soccer teams, are on ESPN Plus. And it's in tournament play, semifinals of conference tournament play. That has to be exciting. Not everybody's a diehard Premier League soccer fan, but college soccer, especially on the women's side, but college soccer is captivating viewing. And it's a good way to get familiar with soccer. If you want to branch out into the MLS here in North America, or if you want to start following the Premier League or Liga Italia or the German Premier Leagues, great place to start is there watching college soccer. The NCAA men's soccer tournament is going to be held and hosted in Cary, North Carolina, and North Carolina State. Tonight, second round matchups. Duke, North Carolina, two schools within 15 miles of where this is being held, and Notre Dame, Florida State. They're all playing second round games. That's on the ACC network. Over on the SEC network, women's soccer semifinals, Vanderbilt, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina. Big Ten Network has volleyball, Wisconsin and Illinois. And Pac-12 later on Thursday night on the East Coast, but basically prime time in its maiden time zone. Men's soccer, San Diego State at Oregon State. Women's soccer, Cal at Oregon. These are all games that you can be watching on any given night. On Saturday mornings, if you know you're just kind of puttering that around the house, just finished raking leaves, running errands, going grocery shopping, you have time to kill after you get home, and the big football game that you don't want to watch, that you want to watch isn't on yet. Don't just stare and mope and vegetate in your chair and your couch. Put on the TV have it on in the background. You can still, acknowledge your kids and play with your kids while it's on in the background. But familiarize yourself with the athletes and the levels of competition that are available to you. On this Saturday morning, there's going to be all sorts of women's field hockey tournament play. If you haven't watched women's field hockey, either at the high school level and certainly at the collegiate level, that's some exciting stuff. So just take a minute and say, shame for ignoring these non-revenue sports up until this point. But then make a resolution. I know it's not January 1st yet. Make a resolution. Hey, you know what? Rather than mindlessly flipping through channels or just have something on I really don't want to watch or that I've already seen 1,000 times. Take advantage of the sports package you already have, the channels you already watch. But don't watch them just on Saturday or in the case of Maction on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Have something on, even if it's just for a half hour or hour. Wade into those waters of soccer and cross country. As we come into the winter, bowling, wrestling, gymnastics, indoor track and field. Many baseball fans come spring will be watching men's baseball, women's softball. But just tremendous opportunities to kind of look at the Olympic athletes of the future by watching outdoor track and field. Don't be so myopic that all you think about is what mass media crams down your throat. You go out and watch your kids soccer or do gymnastics or play other non-revenue sports. Treat yourself to highly trained, entertaining college athletes with great backstories. I'll be back with some stories next Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in to the SlasherU YouTube channel and to What You Talking About. I'm your host, Steve Feck. Can't wait to talk to you throughout the college seasons about all sorts of college sports.